Hello, everyone. My name is Nikita Shimchuk, and I'm extremely and deeply proud and honored to announce that this is a conversation with Professor Nargis Nurulla-Khoja, a doctor of philosophy, a scientist, and a person who, in my opinion, knows the history of Central Asia, and in particular, the history of the great city of Samarkand, inside out. And in this conversation, we're going to talk about the heritage, the past, the present, and the future of the city of Samarkand, the city that used to be one of the main points, if not the main point, of the Great Silk Road. Enjoy.
Yeah, so Professor Nargis, I would like to start this conversation with basically the topic of this dialogue, of this conversation. So I really wanted very much to talk to you about Samarkand, about the city of Samarkand, about its not only history, but also the symbolic or maybe even philosophical cultural value. And to begin with, I would like just to say a few words about my experience in terms of discovering Samarkand. Like back when I was at school or just a bit younger, I knew I think nothing about Samarkand, about the city. And then I was just shocked. I was blown away by the fact that Samarkand is considered to be one of the oldest cities, oldest permanently like inhabited cities, not only in Asia but also in the world. But that's the thing that many people like. The Armenians will say that Yerevan is the oldest city in the world. Jewish people will say that Jerusalem is the oldest city, and etc. etc. So Samarkandi people say that Samarkand is like the first city, the oldest city. But the fact is that this is a very old city with really ancient, big and rich history. And
Yes.
Why am I also extremely interested to ask you about this city? So, as I understand, and if I'm mistaken, just please correct me. As I understand, you have this two-way or two contact points, personal contact points with the city. Again, if I'm not mistaken, you told us that you have your ancestors, your family background is coming from Samarkand, yeah, you are ethnically Samarkandi, and at the same time your career as a scientist. So you're a scientist, you're a historian, and you are a great specialist, especially in the history of Central Asia and history of Samarkand. So you have this, two contact points with the city. On the one hand, this personal bond, and on the other hand, this academic, historical, scientific relationship. And in this case, like from this standpoint, what, in your opinion, is Samarkand? So, like, what does this word Samarkand mean to you personally and scientifically?
Okay. So first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk. And
My
to
pleasure.
probably, yes, to talk about one of the favorite subject of mine. I love to talk about Samarkand. Samarkand, it's not just simply the city that we admire, and we admire from very different point of view. It's not about only history. It's about sort of environment, social, cultural environment that we have in this city. And plus, it's about possibility to see the history in general from different point of view. Because every time when we talk about history, it's more about very kind of smoothly going towards European vision of the history as it is. But we need to learn every time not to underline that which city is the most ancient one. It's about learning how to share. And Samarkand probably is one of the cities that make this feeling that we need to regain this feeling of how to share and not just simply every time insist on being the first, every time to make it us more advanced, more progressive compared to others. Samarkand is a very organically in terms of sharing. And I can, one of the very kind of recent examples, just yesterday, one of our neighbor, I live in a very traditional environment,
In a mahalla?
Mahalla, yes, it's a kind of neighboring community. And my neighbor just simply knocked at the door saying, "Oh, I brought you mulberries." And now it's a season of mulberries. Uh, I was just a bit surprised just because it was a big dish. And usually in the Samarkandi context, we have this kind of dish, this kind of mulberry stuff very early morning. It was 6 a.m. I was just like very surprised. And I said, "Oh, thank you very much. It's so kind of you." And my 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 mother-in-law, she just simply explained me that it's again normal to share with neighbors. It's normal, yes, again to offer and to make it something very pleasant to your neighbor. And to keep good relations with neighbor, it's one of the probably the very interesting nuance that we lost during of quite long recent history, mostly long. I mean, particularly for us, it's long. But again, sharing with neighbor and learn how to share in general, that's a very kind of Samarkandi feature that I really love and I really appreciate.
So sharing and can we say being hospitable, yeah, hospitability?
Hospitality, it's a
Hospitality,
very
yeah,
kind of,
hospitality.
yes, it's again feature of Samarkandi context. For instance, I don't remember, Nikita, did I tell you or not? The world itself, in a Samarkandi context, neighbor, it means, if we say it, it's a tragic word usually, just because context is again very bilingual. Samarkandi can share not just meals and pleasure, they just simply share languages as well, because they are very organically bilingual. For instance, they speak Tajik.
Yeah.
That's again historical context and recent kind of acquisition. It's about Uzbek language. So they just simply switch from one language
Yeah, I will
to another.
definitely drill down on that as well, just further,
And
yeah.
usually in Samarkandi context, we call it neighbor as a hamsoya. Hamsoya, it's a very philosophical meaning. It's got just because hamsoya it means boham, together under one shadow. So it's yes, it's more about togetherness. So and shadow might be very very different again. It's a cultural, it's historical, it's again ethical, and it's about languages as well. That's why being Hamsoya, being neighbors, it's not about different languages and different nationalities. It's about just simply learn to share and be together.
Okay, you mentioned this historical perspective, historical let's say discovery of and research of Samarkand, of its heritage, and I'm really interested in looking at Samarkand and maybe trying to of course within the boundaries of this conversation, but trying to analyze it through the lens of this three standpoints: so people, culture, and religion. Obviously, of course. I understand that all of them are really connected and interconnected, like people and culture and religion. It, I think, always comes together, but at least try to distinguish and maybe talk about them separately, but of course as parts of something bigger, like the whole people, the whole culture, the whole community. So if we talk about people, so I was also quite shocked when I first came to Uzbekistan. It was almost 2 years ago. I was coming to a city that is an Uzbek city, a city that is located in Uzbekistan, which is one of the most popular cities in Uzbekistan. And I was like, okay, so now I'm in Uzbekistan finally. And then I listen to the people that they talk on the streets. I hear some sounds, some words, some sentences, language. I hear the music of this language, and I'm like, oh wow, well that's Uzbek. Yeah, so that's how Uzbek language sounds. But then I get acquainted, get familiar with some of my classmates in the university, and one girl, she's Uzbek, like Uzbek, and she gave me some examples of like Uzbek language, and then I understand that well, that's a very different language that doesn't really sound like the same as what I was hearing on the streets. And only like afterwards, I just discovered that actually Samarkand is inhabited mostly by people who like consider themselves Tajiks or like Persians or just Tajiks. They speak Tajik. They speak maybe not exactly the same Tajik as people in Tajikistan speak, but definitely it's more Tajik than it is Uzbek. And so this interesting mixture, this interesting mix, like on the one hand you have the city in Uzbekistan, but at the same time the city that is like the city that speaks Tajik on its streets. How did that happen? Like, was Samarkand always, related to Tajiks, to Persians, and how come Uzbeks who are considered as Turkic people, right? How come did they appear in Samarkand or in this region?
First of all, we need to understand that Central Asia itself, it's about mixture of very different languages, different traditions, different backgrounds. And every time to identify city, I think would be right to say city doesn't have a nationality because city more ancient. City itself is a phenomenon that actually very, very popular as a concept itself. For instance, in Europe, when we say city, we need to have certain number of people, certain residents, in order to announce this place or this unit as a city. In Asia, usually, in order to have city, for instance, you need to have 40 kind of crafts, very different approach, attitude. And plus, when we talk about nationality, it's actually it's a European, again, concept that arrived in the middle of 19th century. So imagine community, that's about Benedict Anderson's very, very famous concept that we need to imagine. We need to compose new identity and integrate into society in order to manipulate modern way. It's a very, very modern concept that we accepted, but plus we need to understand that particularly in such regions as a Central Asia, and it's actually very, very attached to, for instance, very applicable to Caucasus. Mm-hmm. It's very applicable to Middle Eastern countries that happen to be people are very interconnected. And this interconnection, that's the thing that we need, again, to understand. For instance, when we say Samarkand, Uzbekistan, or what is it? It's more about Tajikistan. No, it's not about Tajikistan or Uzbekistan itself. It's more about Samarkand itself. The city that actually more bigger than just simply concept of nationality.
Extends beyond the concept of nationalities that were just created artificially, right?
And we no. Just leave it artificiality aside. Okay. Just because we need again to learn, to make it, make the concept itself more flexible, particularly in terms of, it's not about language only. And this context, one of the very, very interesting, I found it's interesting, is researcher, American researcher Marshall Hodgson. He offered concept that he said it's a Persianate. And it's not about language. It's more about mentality that happen to be quite same. Because every time when we talk about Central Asia, now particularly, we talk about 5 stands and we talk about differences between those 5 stands.
Yep.
That's for us more important. How Kazakhs differ from Kyrgyz and others. How Tajiks, how they can be presented as a independent national state. Okay, people, but the issue is, before incorporating nationality as a concept, we had more in common. We had more in common in terms of, again, mentality, culture. That's about Persianate world that was much bigger than Central Asia itself. It was more about part of India that happened to be under Babur's great Mughals dynasty that happened to be from Central Asia. It's about very big part of Iran, particularly we're talking about North and Central Iran and central part of Afghanistan. That's a very, very big geographically spreading. And it's about Persianate, it's about more combination of Persian poetics that happen to be actually intertwined with a religion. That's why on this base we have a famous Sufi movement, Sufi tradition that happens to be from this region as well. Okay, so it's quite complicated, particularly because we've got used to, again, the concept of nationality when we talk about land, territory, and people. It's not about differences. We need to learn to share. We need to learn again to look on picture broader and find out what's make us close to each other. Understand each other. That would be more right. Jalaluddin Rumi, one of the most famous, by the way, he is famous poet of world and people. He was originally from this region, and he settled there because of very, very kind of complicated situation. He settled in Turkey, in Konya. So, and Jalaluddin Rumi said that hamdili az hamzaboni behtar ast. It means that much more important to have same heart's approach, your heart approach. We need to have a same heart approach than just simply same language.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes, it's about, again, as I said, it's more about mentality. We need to get rid of constant aspiration to divide, to underline differences between us. That's about Samarkandi history.
Wow, that's interesting. And you also mentioned religions, the word religion, and the impact. Of course, the great impact that the religions, different religions, and their expansion, development, their role in the history of Samarkand. So, before Islam, I remember that there is such a religion, or there was such a religion as Zoroastrianism, that was the main, or maybe one of the main religions in that region, in this region, before Islam, and then the religion of Islam was created. It started expanding, and etc., etc., etc. How did Islam reach Samarkand, and what did things really change in Samarkand, in this region, after the introduction of Islam? And what about the heritage of Zoroastrianism? Do people in Samarkand, in this region, do they still have some, some heritage from Zoroastrianism? Because how it happened, for example, in this region, like in Belarus or in Eastern European region, we here are being constantly told that we are Christians, that we have this Christian culture, that all our culture is entirely Christian, but at the same time, we have so many things coming like from the from paganism, basically. So many beliefs, so many heroes, myths, stories, and things like that that still exist in our culture, and like there is no way they're Christian, they're pagan. So did something like that happen in Samarkand after the introduction of Islam?
First of all, let me just explain that the Zoroastrian religion is one of the possible idea about arriving Zoroastrian religion in this region. It's actually one of the possible ideas. It's the motherland of Zoroastrian religion. It's Khorasan. Khorasan is an ancient land. But again, it's not so important for us to find out where it was first. More important, it's about the way how people accepted Zoroastrian religion. Because it's interesting, because I told you during the course that in Central Asia, we actually, for a very long time, thanks to commercial activity, commercial interest of Sogdian people, they had the system that probably is similar or remind Greek city policies. It wasn't state as we've got used to. Kind of state, bigger couple of few cities together. They can simply make a state. It was a different picture. It was a couple of few, quite a lot, by the way, city-states. Very remind Greeks' association of city policies. But the issue is why I decided to talk about them, just because flexibility in terms of accepting religion happened there as well. I mean, some people followed Zoroastrian religion, some of them actually wanted to have more from shamanistic faith. Some of them, very, very, by the way, Bukhara, for instance, Bukharan people, they prefer to have a Buddhism.
Really?
Yes. And that's why it's actually very, very kind of mixed. Beautiful mixture of very different priority, religious priority, and a Christian, of course, we had a Judaism people,
Exactly.
yes, Judaism community. So we had a very, very kind of bright composition that happened to be quite good in terms of, again, accepting or not accepting this or that religion. We never had a sort of similar to state religion. For instance, in neighboring Persian empire, we heard about that Zoroastrian was a kind of on the level of state religion, not in Central Asia. I think that's why this kind of flexibility make us accept Islam as well, because sometimes Islam presented as a religion of, would be right to say, merchants, religion of merchants, just because Muhammad was merchant himself.
He was a merchant, right?
Yes, the prophet. And the way how he developed religion, it's more about, again, flexibility. Did you ever think about how actually happened that during of almost 1 century, Islam became huge empire?
Yeah,
like a couple of new empires.
the speed of expansion was really huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, just because, again, thanks to flexibility. During of particularly first couple of few centuries of Islam development, it's in the Middle East and further on, it happened that it accepted just because Abrahamic religion was a very, very important for Muslim people. They were feel good and accepting. Christians Christianity and Judaism, that it was again with a line of Islam itself. And that's why every time when we talk about Abrahamic religion, that's about, again, sharing. That every time I underline that the first Muslim people, it's about sharing, it's about acceptance. And getting back to Samarkand, did you ever participate in a wedding ceremony here in Samarkand?
Not really. Not really.
Just one nuance that I wanted to tell. When you said about some kind of leftover fragments of the Zoroastrian religion now in Samarkand, it is. For instance, after the ceremony, after the wedding party itself, we usually, group of young people, together with a bride and groom, they usually walk or accompany new couple to home with a torch, with a kind of fire torch, and it's with a songs, with the traditional songs and greetings of all people around, and declaring that we've got a new couple.
That's from Zoroastrianism, right?
Yes, it's a Zoroastrian. Wow. And plus, we have a special fireplace when new couple again going around of it a couple of times. Again, it's a sort of blessing from fire, and it's about, again, some kind of good wishes to be clean when you just enter to the new stage of your life. That's about Zoroastrian as well.
Wow, interesting. And you mentioned Islam. You said that what basically helped this development was the flexibility, right? And I mean, am I right? Am I correct when I say that? Well, this flexibility also means some sort of inclusivity, right? In a sense that anyone basically could become a Muslim. And for example, if we speak about Judaism, which is also an Abrahamic religion, in Judaism the situation is different, right? Like Judaism is more of a national religion, right? Not as flexible as Christianity and Islam, right?
Mm-hmm. Depend on people, depend on interpretation. Whenever you have sources, you might have, it's again, your interpretation depend on, somebody said, interpretation of the text or narrative, historical narrative, it depend on your eyes. What do you see? How do you see? How big it is? So your interpretation every time depend on you, particularly, personally. And that's important moment. And when we talk about interpretation, again, depend on people, particularly today's political situation. That's a different. But what is important? It's about more acceptance in terms of not just religion itself. It's about not strengthening borders of religion. For instance, in a Sufi context, if you remember or not, one of the biggest Sufi tradition that exists in the world, it's called Naqshbandiya. Naqshbandiya, it's from Bukhara. I won't talk about details and nuances, but one motto of Naqshbandiya, it might be interesting in terms of, again, flexibility. The main motto of Naqshbandiya, it's about Dil Bayoru Dast Bakor. It's about in your heart, you need to keep admiring God and thinking about remembering God, but you need to do work with your hand. Mm-hmm. So it's about, again, flexibility. It's not about isolation, asceticism. It's more about acceptance. Very different type of work but keep morality on a high level. Be close to God. Because another principle of people that we learn from Sufi, it's about God within us. If we remember, so it depends on us mainly. If we start to forget, that's the reason you just simply make yourself further from God.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yes, I know it's absolutely different, but still it exists.
No, it's an interesting perspective, by the way, yeah. Because
absolutely.
Yeah, I've never heard about that from the perspective of Central Asia and Samarkand from this perspective, so yeah.
When you said that I'm historian, I need to underline that I'm not historian. I'm philosopher.
Philosopher, yeah.
It's a more look on history from philosophical point. It's more logical to me. It's a more kind of right. Because philosophy, it might help us to broaden the platform and make connection more useful.
All right, and Professor Nargis, one additional question about like the connection between Islam and Samarkand. You mentioned flexibility. You mentioned this idea, this concept, right, of accepting and being flexible. And what about I'd say the violent part of the question? I mean about the religious wars that of course happened, and if we talk about Islam, so we remember what happened also in Europe, right? In what's now Spain, all of these wars that happened, conquerors and things like that. So did some wars and conflicts happen in this region, like from the perspective of Islam and Islam expansion on the region of Samarkand? Like what happened from this perspective?
People everywhere, people. If you make them believe that the religion itself might be violent, that's wrong. In our neighboring Afghanistan, for instance, the situation, as far as we know, it's getting worse from day to day. Yeah. Particularly when we're talking about relations. Yeah, particularly when we talk about women's status. How they work and how they survive. But we need to understand that, again, try to make frame around of religion, that's wrong. Because it's impossible, actually. And if you just install border and make this border very, very strict, and in that context, we will have very kind of authoritative regime that will based mainly on interpretation of violence, if you decided to have such interpretation. More flexibility and more about learn to, again, to make our heart on the same level, that would be more right. That's a very complicated. I know that we might actually refer on situation with Tajiks today, for instance, in a recent very, very bad incident that happened to them.
Yeah, it was awful, yeah.
It is still kind of not understandable. Oops. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just something with my computer.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. The point is that it's not understandable from our point of view. Absolutely. And plus, it's not acceptable because, again, we cannot accept existence of such kind of attitude from people we can consider our neighbor or just people who just live next to each other physically. That's why we probably would be right for us to understand that violence in religion, it's things that cannot be connected. Absolutely. Particularly when we're talking about the way how we interpreted Islam. Again, it's wrong to say that our vision is right, but we think that it's wrong to insist on violence from religion side.
Okay, I got you. And in order to sort of finalize this topic about religions in Samarkand, I also want to share some of my experience, some of my observations. Maybe you remember when we had this great course with you, we had to prepare some presentations, small research on culture and also religion in Samarkand, and I was I became really interested in the religious aspect, like what religions are represented in Samarkand, what temples, right, what churches, and etc., etc., etc. And for me, it was fascinating when I actually noticed that, for example, almost in the very center of Samarkand, just like near the Silk Road International University, you have Eastern Orthodox Christian church. And then you have a Catholic church, a Roman Catholic church. Also, you have, not far away from the railway station in Samarkand, I found a Protestant church. I don't remember what denomination of Protestantism this church was, but it was a Protestant church. And also a synagogue, right, the Jewish temple. And it was fascinating to me. I was really shocked that so many different religions, different temples, and they can coexist, not just within one country, not just within one city, but almost in the center of the country, not far away from mosques, from Muslim temples, and it was fantastic.
Again, it's not a fantastic. It's a normal. It's a normal way of life here. If we learn that it's organically to accept others if they feel like you. But if you try to every time to say that I'm right and you're wrong, in that case, the next step is about elimination of others. The point is, it's organically incorporated in the history, in the culture of Samarkand, to accept others and to learn to accept and admire others without losing yourself.
Mm-hmm. So, long story short, a conclusion from your words can be that it's not fascinating, but it's normal or it's organic, right?
No. It's organic. It's a normal rhyme. It's a normal attitude toward life around you.
Yeah. Oh, and I also forgot, the an Armenian Apostle Church, also almost in the center of the city.
By the way, Armenian diaspora is one of the oldest one here.
Yep. I once visited just a small, I think it was a coffee shop or just a small cafe, I think 5 or 10 minutes walking from the university. I think it's called Blinная Почта, right? Like this cafe. And I was like, when I visited this cafe, I saw that they have some Easter eggs over there. Yeah, so some signs of celebrating Easter, And I'm like, oh, wow, like, are you Christians or like what? And they're like, yeah, we're Armenians, we're Armenian Christians. And I'm like, wow, that's great to know. And when I visited this Armenian Apostle Church, I talked to I don't think that this guy was the priest or something like that. I think he was maybe a security guy or just some guy who was maintaining this church. And I asked him, like, do you have many Armenians here still left in Samarkand? He said, yep. And I said, and what about? I asked him, what about the people that come to your church? Do you have many people that come to your church? Do you have many parishioners? I said, yeah, a lot of people come every Sunday, I think, right, to the church. And I was like, wow, Armenians in Samarkand, like.
No. It's about us who just got used to, oh, there's Armenia, so it should be in the country, in Armenia itself. But the point is, Armenians themselves are very cosmopolitan. And that's the way how it should be.
Armenians are all over the world.
Yes, all over the world, and they just feel very comfortable with it. And it's again normal for Armenian.
Yeah. Professor Nargis, now I would like just to talk a little bit about the Silk Road, about the Great Silk Road. I remember that during one of the lectures you were actually explaining or introducing the Silk Road to us. And I remember you said that, well, a lot of people actually think that the Silk Road is an entirely, a completely Chinese invention and that the Chinese were in charge of the Silk Road. But you said that actually, like from a historical perspective, the Sogdians were like mostly in charge of the Silk Road, and it was one of the most important trade paths or trade phenomenons for Samarkandi and for the Sogdians that also lived in this region. So just from a philosophical, from a symbolic perspective, what does the Silk Road, the heritage of the Silk Road mean symbolically for Samarkand, for this city?
It's actually, I think Silk Road happened just because, again, their gift of being flexible, their gift in order to have a very, very good balance with all people around. Just because when we talk about Samarkand, it's a city. During of history, very long history, ages and ages, around of Samarkand, we had a nomadic tribes. Yes, tribes that were circulating. And it means that how to possible to negotiate with all nomadic on your way in order to have them to be in charge of your security and to get to the point to very, very remote Chinese capitals. Because at Sogdian, thanks to their multilinguistic abilities, thanks to their, again, way to install good relations and being flexible towards others, they actually managed to do it. Mm-hmm. Chinese were very oriented on their kind of borders, on their wall. That's why every time when we just think about Chinese culture, the main point, the main thing that's coming to us is about this kind of wall against of nomadic tribes. But the Silk Road, it was initiation from Chinese, but they wanted to have access to Western land, to Sogdian people. And when the first official delegation arrived, Sogdian said, why not? We can do it. Mm-hmm. We can work with you.
Proactive guys. Yeah.
Very proactive. Initiative. Very kind of groups in terms of accepting and passing further. That's about goods, that's about ideas, that's about everything that is coming to this crossroads.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. And well, Professor Nargis, what about the current state of Samarkand, the current picture, the current symbolism of Samarkand? So now it's an Uzbek city, And what I've noticed, like from basically from my experience of living in Samarkand and basically dealing with people from there and from Uzbekistan, that Samarkand now, well, to some degree, to some extent, is some sort of a marketing tool, or at least the image of Samarkand is a marketing, promotion, advertisement tool for the whole country of Uzbekistan. So when Uzbeks now, when people from Uzbekistan, when they try to promote their country, they're not talking about Tashkent. They're not, well, almost they're not talking about Bukhara. Now they're firstly talking about Samarkand, and well, I think the biggest numbers of tourists that visit Uzbekistan, of course, they would visit Samarkand first, and they try to go visit Samarkand first. What do you think about this modern picture of Samarkand, and the idea that Uzbekistan is using the image of Samarkand as an attraction tool for attracting resources, people, tourists, and things like that?
First of all, it's very good to use Samarkand just because it's, again, right approach toward developing, toward making others know about such treasure as Samarkand is. And plus, do you remember Registan, Nikita?
Of course. Impossible to forget that. Yeah.
Absolutely impossible. And plus, it's probably one of the most beautiful square in the world. We need to make world acknowledge this. We need to make world say that, yes, Samarkand, kind of by understanding of meaning and contribution to the history, it's definitely capital of spiritual, historical, cultural capital of very big territory. We might say Central Asia. We might say bigger territory. But the point is, world definitely needs these kind of examples. These kind of examples that how to how to be, again, flexible and keep your treasury and make others acknowledge that it exists. And the next step after acknowledgement will be definitely meaning of Samarkand itself in the history and culture of the world. That would be very, very good for Samarkandi people. And Uzbekistan, it's actually very good in terms of, again, explaining, making others understand that Uzbekistan is really proud of having Samarkand.
Yeah, you mentioned Registan. I like Registan, but the most favorite place in Samarkand for me personally is Shahizinda. I was just in love. I fell in love with Shahizinda. It was fantastic. Just.
It is fantastic, and Samarkand got not just only Shahizinda and Registan.
Of course. Bibi Khanim, yeah.
Everybody will have something own in Samarkand. And if you have a chance to come again, Nikita, you are very welcome.
Thank you very much. I hope that soon enough I will come back to Samarkand and visit this great city. And Professor Nargis, I can't resist the temptation to ask you about the future of Samarkand. So how do you see the future of this city, maybe from a cultural standpoint, maybe from a symbolic, maybe political standpoint? So considering what's happening now with the city, with the country, right? Because we can't deny the fact that actually Uzbekistan changed a lot, right? Especially since the current president, President Mirziyoyev, took over and took office. The country changed, the approach changed, everything changed. So also, like, given all that, considering all of that, what do you think? What can we expect from Samarkand, if I put it this way?
Okay, what do you expect? So it means that your question is more about today's situation, that future.
Well, today's, but prolonged in the future, right?
point is, so it was kind of easy for me to answer just because by Sufi tradition, person need to think about today's. It's not about future. Just learn to live today and learn to again enjoy today's life. Because we can understand that it's too complicated, it's too intricate to try to make future visible, predict, live today, and enjoy again. That's the way how it should be to me for now.
Yeah, you are a real philosopher. That's a very philosophic type of answer, right? Yes, that's
Okay, yes,
interesting.
that's it. Yes.
Yeah, and Professor Nargis, and the very last question. This is the question that I really wanted to ask you. If we imagine that we speak now, or we talk to all the people all over the world that have never been to Samarkand, what can we tell them? Like, why do they need to come visit Samarkand?
They don't need. They just need. They just.
Why can they become interested? Let's say, or how can they become interested?
Okay, how? That's another question.
Okay.
Perhaps it might be again multi-sided question. It might be from political point of view, from historical, cultural. I will talk from philosophical point of view that, as I said from the very start, that if you just wanted really to feel this kind of friendliness and flexibility, that's your place.
Great.
Yes, that's about it. That's about Samarkand. It's not about sharing. Samarkand, I mean, sharing, it's not about just simply sharing. It's about more about, in today's context, it's more about sharing and plus flexibility. When you're just flexible enough, it means that you just simply make others understand that if you want to come, you just simply will enjoy. If not, think about it more. So be mature enough to accept that Samarkand is worth to come.
All right, Professor Nargis, thank you very much. That was my very last question.
Okay, thank you, Nikita. And so please, my best regards, very warm regards to all Belarusian colleagues. And I very hope that we will see each other someday.
Yeah, to Gleb as well, right? I think you remember.
Yes, please,
Him.
separate regards to Gleb.
Of course.
Yes, and I hope that one day you guys will be enough to say yes, we need to go.
Oh yeah. I really hope that we will come back to Samarkand. We with Gleb actually we discussed this question and we agreed upon the fact that we really want to come back. Maybe not like now, maybe in 1 year, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 3 years, but we really want to come back and just at least to feel that the atmosphere of the city and our memories will get refreshed.
And one more thing, whenever you work, for instance, on economy and a business or whatever, you just think about that again, flexibility of tourism sector. It can allow you to make this kind of connection between what things that you are doing, and plus it's about opening possibility, chances for, yes, to combine this. And in that case, I think it would be, again, helpful for both sides.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Nargis. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you and take care.
Thank you. You too.